we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much. I know that we're going to have people continuing to stream in. I'm Courtney Frey, so glad that you guys have showed up tonight. I am a Dove parent, and we are GCISD families. And if you don't know our name, it just formed about 2 months ago. So right when all of this school closure talk started happening, us parents said, what is this? What's going on? So I'm thrilled that we do have parents that are here. You're interested in facts. We want to make sure you are informed tonight. We want to make sure you're empowered. And that you come away with a good grasp and feeling that your voice matters. Because I think what most of us parents here tonight feel is that these decisions have been made about us without us. And you want to change that. So thank you for being here. So tonight we are going to, what's the next slide? Oh, tonight's purpose. So we are going to inform. We're going to engage. We want to hear from you. We believe your voice matters, and we want to hear it tonight. And then we are going to gather this information, and we are going to deliver it to the district, because we feel that our community collective voice has to be a part of this equation. So that's what we want to accomplish tonight. Next slide. So our schedule, we want to get you out of here on time. I mean, we want to have a really good time, sure. We want to talk about facts. But we're going to go over enrollment and revenue. And why is that important? And we're going to talk about how much a single kid costs in revenue. And we're going to see why that matters when we're talking about deficits in our budget. We're also going to talk about looking back. We're going to look at the 15 history of our fund balance every year and where we were in 2011 and what that looked like. So it was a bigger deficit than what we see today. And then we're going to talk about what they did to get us out of that hole. So we have some very important guests here tonight. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Tate, Mayor of Grapevine, back here. Thank you so much for being here. We also have our Councilman Leon Leal. He's here. And we also have John Downey. He's going to talk to us here. He was the executive director of learning at GCISD for a very long time. He's been in education for 40 years. And he was with us in 2011 when we had that big deficit. And he's going to walk us through how they solved the problem then to see if we have a chance at solving it now. So we're really excited to hear from these speakers. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to go ahead and just hand it off to Leon. And I want to make sure, Leon, you're going to go first, sorry. So just so you know, Leon is not only our council member, he used to be on the school board for 9 years. And for many of those years, he was also school board president. So we are excited. Oh, and I see former trustee Becky St. John back there. Thank you for being here. So we've got some really great history here in this room. We've got some great minds to pick from. And so I want to take advantage of this. So I'm going to hand it off to Leon now. You're going to be in really good hands.
Well, hopefully you'll be in good hands, but we'll see how that goes. So my name is Leon Leal, and yes, I was on school board for 9 years, I think from 2008 to 2017, and I get asked a lot why I came off the school board. And I came off the school board because our youngest son graduated. And so at one point, we had elementary, middle, high school fee in Grapevine Collegeville. And so I felt as I got, as our boys got older, for me anyway, it was hard to stay relevant within our school, which is Tracy, my wife, and I spent hours at events, and those people that know me and wait out there, and they saw me all the time because we were positive students. And so what happened was at the elementary, her parents approached me, at middle, they approached their high school, and he really knew what was going on. So I always felt it was important that while you have some trustees that may not have get to school, it's important to me anyway to do an effective school board members to have kids and see involved. So, but I'm going to ask you some questions before we get started, and because I got a few questions, and I said I would answer some questions, and I think it's important that we talk about that. Obviously, one question was they asked about Robinhood, and so I can tell you the first week that I got on school board, the first thing that happened was we got an overview of Robinhood. It was a lot to understand, and certainly the financing. So what we did is I dug deep into it, and what I realized was at that time, I think we were about 9% Robinhood. These are only about 10% of school boards that were giving away 9% funds to district. So today, it's 30%. So what that means is 30% of what they refer to as in its district give money back to poor districts, which I know is a complicated understanding, but the truth is this. So when we were school board, we actually filed a suit against the state about Robinhood, and we won. It actually went up to the Supreme Court of Texas, and we won that. But here's the reality of Robinhood, and this is a hard thing to understand. It goes back to legislation. So when you're, as a district, 30% of the district that's given away 70% to poor districts, well, in Austin, those legislators are not going to vote where's money at those districts. So it's a very complicated and difficult thing to understand with Robinhood. So we, as a board, really spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we could get people to come to our district. And Ron will talk about that in a minute. But we also stayed in lanes, meaning our board members had different directives. And honestly, respect to Becky St. John, she's a pit bull, and she was in Austin all the time. She was driving legislators crazy about Robinhood. But it's a difficult thing because even though our legislators want to fight for you and our Robinhood, the truth is when you go down to Austin, at this point, 70% are getting money from us. So that's a hard thing to get past. However, there was a meeting today from both of our city leaderships, and they've committed to work with the district. There's going to be some meetings, I think, set up to meet with the district to try to help with this situation. I was told I could talk about it tonight. So that's coming shortly. I think our cities that want to help. I know there's a lot of social media stuff, but the truth is that we obviously care about our schools, right? And we want to be the best for our kids. But it's just one of those things where we have to let the process take its course before we get to where we can jump in and help. And that, as you know, I think we're at a point now where that's probably what we need to start doing. So Doves, I get the question, how I feel about Dove. And I'm going to be really, really honest about something that I think that's not being addressed. When you think about the number one thing that our responsibility is as a school board, as a city, when it comes to our school district, it's safety in these kids. And I know they had a Rubik's, and I know they had all this formula, but that was never discussed in regards to what is the most important thing when it comes to our school district, and that is the safety of our kids. And unfortunately, we live in a society where a lot of things are going on with schools, and we have to be able to get our fire and police to those schools and take care of those schools. And Dove Elementary is probably the best location, like any elementary, at least in Grapevine, to keep it safe. And from a safety perspective, I can't support closing Dove. Now, I understand if we get to the point where it sounds like they are, that if this is what we need to do, then let's talk about what makes sense for our cities and keeping our kids safe. So that was a question I got. I got Robinhood, and I think that's it that I had. I had a question about the responsibility of the school board, and it's pretty limited, honestly. We fire, and we review the superintendent. They hold the district accountable to, operating productively, right? We also set the budget, and they also responsible for any new policies that come or anything that needs to be changed as we change as a district. So that's a pretty simple question to answer. I'll be glad to answer questions. I'm always available. I make time to return every email, calls. A lot of people that know me, it doesn't matter your perspective on a school board. Parents are very passionate about their children sometimes. And there was often where I'd say, hey, I'll help you through this process, but it's probably not going to be the outcome, but you have every right to do that, regardless of how you feel. But I'm always available, and I welcome questions to try to help Tom or Steve with the chat. So now I'm going to turn it over to John real quick. If he's going to talk a little bit, then I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to bug out of it.
Good evening.
Yeah.
My name is John Downey, and I've been in education for about 45 years now. I said you lived it. Lived in Grapevine, Colorado for over 30 years, and in the Dove area for the last 25 years. Worked for the district for 17. And so obviously I'm committed. I've got 2 grandchildren at Grapevine Elementary, and I care what happens to this district and to the kids. They asked me to talk about this slide, and it's kind of interesting to have an educator talk about money. And we just like spending, and we don't equate kids to money. As educators, we think about educating every single kid and what they need, and we let the finance people worry about the money. But the reality is that enrollment drives revenue. And so when we lose enrollment, we obviously lose revenue. And when you consider $6,160 for every student, unless you take a voucher and then you get 10,000, but whenever I talk about that tonight, you can see how that multiplies. When we lose 318 students, that's almost $2 million of lost revenue. Now let's talk to you tonight a little bit about losing a whole lot more than $2 million. When, do you want me to talk about League 24-1 yet, or you want to go to the next slide and let Ian talk about that? All right. That's good. You go.
So, interesting enough, I just saw the slides for the first time yesterday. I do know all the school board members, and we've got one which I would show on being late tonight. So, when we had discussions about this, even before they changed the met with most of them that we've talked about, I always said, we kind of dealt with the same thing. We looked at the same kind. Now, I'm older. That was in 2009, Ken, and I kind of knew we went through a lot of difficult times like they're going to now. But what I didn't know is how really close we were if you look at the numbers in 2009 to where we are now as far as revenue go. In fact, we gave away a little bit more money back then, so Robin, and our fund balance dropped enormous rates. And one of the things that we dealt with early on was the first thing I was told, the very first part of my training was, we're going to run out of Maine, we're in Stubble, didn't have to close schools. And I'm not kidding, that was the first part of my orientation of the school board movement. We give so much money to stay, enrollment is down, and we're probably going to have to do something next 2 weeks. I think I rolled on in 2008, so this is where we were, and John will talk more about what we did. So we kind of had the same situation at the time. I tell the story about my son, for example, our oldest son at the time, that he had freshman at Brainstorm High School, and he had block scheduling. And we had to cut. And the next sophomore, junior year, he had regular schedule and had to induce. All right. But we went back to block scheduling in the senior year because things got turned around, because it is eventually did. Now, a lot of you may have remembered Robin Ryan, and I remember distinctly sitting in meetings with him. And when we looked at this and we were thinking what we were going to do about schools closing, what are we going to do to try to reduce budgets? What are we going to do to try to achieve revenue? 2 things I distinctly remember. One is Robin Ryan was a military guy. Okay, if you think of Apollo 13, he had that attitude, was like, failure was not an option with him. And he was like, we're not this is not something we're going to do. I'm a small businessman. We've had a small business for 25 years. We have other businesses that we do. And I'm kind of the same way. I don't shut doors because I have a down year. Or I don't close out things because we have a cup go. You know, we start looking at our finances. We look at our staff. We look at the way we do business. We look at what we're buying. We look at how we can reduce here and there. So that was kind of what we took away from it, and what we could try to figure out a way to have to invest a little bit. And one of the things that's kind of a gold standard in our district right now is iPrep University, eh? Everybody talks about iPrep. Oh, it's making us all kinds of money. We lost $2 million the first couple of years. And I'm telling you, I had a conversation within the first 2 years, because I'm a pretty conservative guy when it comes to stuff. And I was like, Robert, we got to shut this thing down. We're losing money. And he's like, Leon, you know, show me some, you know, what they were doing. I went to the virtual force myself. And you know what? I bought it. I'm like, okay, let me push it out. We're going to promote it. We're going to try to, and within a year, we broke even. And I remember 5 years in, he's like, hey, we made $2 million. I'm like, but we still got to make another $2 because of this Walsh. Remember the first year, because but we did. Okay. And now it's something that at the time was unheard of. Completely out of the box of who thought about online schooling in 2000, and I think it was 13 or 14. Nobody did that. In fact, during COVID, we were the ones that everybody was calling, saying, hey, how have y'all been doing that? What did y'all do? How do you do this? And so since then, there are other schools and other districts that are trying to implement what we did. So I remember having a conversation about the lights. And you think this is crazy, but I was like, you know, every time I go to school, it's freezing in the summer and it's hot in the winter. What is going on? I mean, kids are in shorts and T-shirts in the middle of winter because it's so hot. So we hire consultants, and we ended up going with the first. We saved $200,000 by turning down thermostat. And we just kind of thought outside of the box of what we could do. But John's going to talk about the program that started that. But we're going to talk about Lead 2021. I'm just going to sit down. But I will tell you one thing about Lead 2021. I thought it was a crazy idea. It was a 10-year plan. And I was thinking, you serious? We got a problem right now, you know. But it was a 10-year process. And we created a lot of revenue in that 10 years. And we told the way to figure out how to keep our schools open, and more importantly, draw people to our district. Draw people that were doing things like saying to us, hey, I can spend a little more money on my house and put my kids in public school than sitting over here paying private school. And that's a truth. And so Aspire program is a great example of that. So anyway, that's our perspective of things. However, I'm going to just give a little bit to the school board. They've got hard decisions they have to make. You know what? I promise you, every board member that was elected did not sign up for what they're doing is right now. And I have a lot of respect for them. You know, a lot of people talk about school board, but you got to go through the process, and it's brutal in today's world, those elections, okay? And so, you know, they got tough, hard decisions to make. I think that they, in their hearts, feel like they are doing what they think is best to the district. Okay, I really do believe that. But I also believe, too, that it's great seeing you guys here. For you guys are the ones that we need to listen to. And by you being here is telling me that you're all in to do whatever you have to do. Our cities are all in to figure out a way to help the school district. And so I think together we'll figure this thing out. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to John here. But
so as we look back on Lead 2021, this is the short version of it. Fall of 2010, the school board, Robin Ryan, decided we need to have a plan and brought in a consultant. I was on the 30-person team that went through days and days of work in developing a direction for the district. Lead 2021 was about a 10-year vision. And we spent a lot of time debating what that should look like and what we should do. Past the 30-person team, who were staff members, parents, being and others, we expanded that to hundreds of community members and parents who were on action teams, hammering out, so what does this look like? What are we going to do now? Because LEAD was leading excellence, action-driven. This was about transforming the district and taking action and doing something different. The whole mindset was, we don't want to be the same. I remember a board meeting in which a trustee, and I know trustees sometimes would think, oh, geez, why doesn't he just retire? Because he's getting old and cranky. But a board member asking the trustee, asking me, so, what are they doing in other districts? And I was close to retirement at this time, and I said, you know what? Respectfully, I don't care what they do in another district, because you have charged us with being different. And if we're going to follow other districts, then we will not be different. We will not be a destination district, and that's what Being 2021 is about. So there were a lot of debates. Is Kimberly here? Oh, man, she wouldn't make it. Kimberly and I went head-to-head constantly through the 2021. This was prior to her being a board member. Then she got elected to the board. I realized this lady doesn't like me very much. So, but it was through those difficult conversations that we got what we got. And a lot of people think LEAD 2021 was a reason for all of this. And this is just a partial list. When you think of all the things that came out, two-way dual language started before we had LEAD 2021. We had people in place who were already thinking ahead. They were forward thinking. What can we do to serve the needs of these kids? So in February of 2011, the board approved the 2021, and we got to work. A few months later, we get the news that you will be receiving $14 million less from the state than you thought. Can you imagine how crestfallen we were? We're riding the high of this great new plan, this visionary plan. And we get to do it with 14. Now, we just showed you a slide that showed $2 million. This was $14 million 15 years ago. Now, we had a couple decisions to make. And Leon's already alluded to, do you then stop and go, okay, I guess we have to cut. And let's go to every department and tell me how many people you can cut, and we just keep cutting away. Well, that kind of mentality, at some point, you have nobody left. I was envisioning myself and my administrative assistant being the curriculum department at some point, because we had cut every other position. So either we did what other districts did, and that was hunker down and start slashing it, or we thought differently. And what we did was we've reorganized and reallocated resources. We had scarce resources to start with. I came to Texas in 1982. Since 1982, I've been told to cut budgets. So it's not like we were riding high. Maybe in 1982 in Plano, we were, but not in 2011. Anybody find college though. But we were able to reorganize and reallocate resources to make this work. And when you think of what has grown out of the 2021, incredible programs that draw people to this area. Now, that was not our intent. And remember, I'm not a marketer. I'm not a finance guy. Don't care much for policies. I have to read them when I have to. I'm about teaching and learning, and this was to me about reinventing teaching and learning, transforming teaching and learning, and I found a place where I could do that. I had a lot of opportunities in other districts. He paid a whole lot more where I would have had to do a whole lot less, as many people in this district did. But we turned those things down because of the work that was going on. So we had that perfect scenario in which we got to be, as educators, the kind of work that we really wanted to do, not just prepare a kid for a test. And so we not only met the needs of our students, that's our primary concern, when I thought about any of these programs. And there are many others that are not up on that board. Whether you talk about Leader in Me at Timberline or Arts Integration or No Excuses U at Bear Creek, every single campus said, we want to be known for something different to meet the needs of our kids. An outcome of that was that people started taking notes, would say, I want some of that. And I remember I helped facilitate LEAD 2.0. It was after I retired. LEAD 2.0 was kind of in station with LEAD 2021 is in 2017. And Dr. Ryan wanted to go a little bit deeper. We did focus groups where we talked to hundreds of community members. Some of you in this room may have been in one of my focus groups. One of the questions that we asked students, teachers, parents, what are your hopes and dreams for the kids and for this district? And you know what? The one answer I never got was, I want to take a guess. Never got higher test scores than the answer. Never. Hundreds. And I've done the same thing with districts around the state. Thousands of people. Finally, one mother said, well, I'd like higher test with him. Now I can't say no, but nobody in Great Falls did. What they said was, we want strong academics. We want differentiated learning experience. We want creative learning experience. And we want our kids to be able to think, not to be taught what to think or told what to think. We want their emotional and physical needs taken care of. This is what came through in that data. I'm not just making that up. And that helped push the district further as all these things were being developed. So what started as meeting the needs of students really turned into, well, this now is a marketing tool. We can now market these programs because if you go back to the first slide, where every student who comes here, whether they live in McAllen, Texas, and they take classes through iUniverse Prep, that's $6,160 every student gets. So to me, it's not about, when you consider trying to do better and more, or even just the same, and your resources just keep dwindling, at some point, you're not going to get the results that you need. There is a breaking point. And when you continue to take a mentality of slashing, you get to a point where there's no more to slash. And what are we left with? Well, we're not left with what we had envisioned through the 2029. So my hope is that I really would have loved to have these kind of conversations my 17 years in the Bisco. But again, if things are going well, say, what me word. Everything's going well. We don't need to talk to you, curriculum guy, because you're probably the one. We are happy with what's going on. Well, we're at a time of crisis thing, and closing the school is traumatic. We've lived through attendance zone changes, and that's traumatic. When I think of school closures, multiply it by 100. And so what I'm hoping, regardless of what happens in the coming months, I'm hoping that this kind of passion, interest, and dedication towards the success of GCISD is maintained. And you continue to ask that question, what's our vision for the next 2 years? What's our vision for the next 5 years? How can we once again become the district we once were and we want to be? And our kids deserve.
That's it. Thanks, Sean. I'm going to keep this real short, and then because we're not time, keep on schedule. So the truth is not everything worked, okay? So while we're up here saying we did all these great things, some things didn't work. And we had to kind of redirect them. We had to kind of, just bite the bullet and move forward. And as difficult as it is sometimes, because you get these ideas and you think, okay, it's great, that they didn't work in audition. So I'm going to leave you with a couple things. First of all, there's a lot going on in the state of Texas in both education. And here's the reality of it. Some of it is very true. The Seward Total and Fort Worth, right? So, and I go that there are some districts that probably need to be looked at. And I think the broad brush, whenever you look at the legislation coming out, and our government authority, it looks at education, or even at the national level, get education. But that's not Grapevine Gold. We're not in that group. And I'm going to tell you why. We are so blessed and fortunate because here's what happens. And I learned this whenever I was, when I was little. In our district, when a teacher asks for a box of tissues, she gets 10 the next day, and he gets 10 the next day. We got calls when our boys, were out on the playground. Hey, Josh fell. Escape on he's okay. Because some parents are volunteering or parents up for school. That goes on all the time. Timberline Elementary is having their big event this week at Timberline. And the whole community will probably show up. And there will be all kinds of donations that we're given. And there's going to be all kinds of money raised for that school and these kids. That's great on all of it. And so that's what makes it unique. Our mayor is here tonight because he cares, right? I mean, I promise you, people ask me all the time about the mayor. They say, should he be retired by now? No, he's so passionate about this community and what it means to all of you and what it's going to not only be now, but down the road as well. So I really think, too, that right now we have to reevaluate when it comes to elections. I'm talking at the state level, certainly at some of our state representatives. And if they're not going to listen to us, then we need to make hard decisions. Right. And that goes to city council as well. That goes to school board members. Right now, little voice now needs to be heard. You guys have got to speak up. And you know what? It's everybody in the district. We used to say all the time, we want to be really boring. I'm from the school board. Let's just be boring, and that's what our goal was, is to be boring, so that we didn't have to have these types of endings, right? So anyway, we are, we appreciate all you parents for being here. I mean, honestly, it's huge. It's so, I didn't know what to expect. It's so cheap. I appreciate Matt, a school board member, I mean, really thank you for trying that tonight and just listening. And obviously our mayor, and we got some more L board members as well, and I appreciate them. But I'm going to bug out because I probably
the small groups. Yeah, do we have good discussion?
Ours.
Yes. Okay.
Should we start with John's?
Let's John, come up here. Tell us about yours.
Yeah. So John was innovation in education over here. So,
But now it's over there.
but now it's here.
Okay. So there were all sorts of ideas. I think when you talk about innovation in education, because we have been so stuck for so long in a factory model that there are so many possibilities. And again, if you're willing to think differently, you can do some different things that are good for kids. And that's the bottom line. Always in my book, is it good for kids? And then the next question is, how do we pay for it? So whether you're talking about non-graded or you're talking about a low-tech campus or just specialty programs, magnet schools, fostering the common theme among this was addressing the needs of a lot of different kids. And instead of just shooting for the middle, saying, okay, we got the middle group that will be okay and our test scores will be okay, what about all these kids who have specific needs? And how can you build programs that would take a field of dreams mentality. If you build it, they will come. And that was our university prep. If you build it, they will come. And Leon already said, the board I know had palpitations when we brought that idea. Because we said up front, we're going in the hole for 2 years. And that's never accepted very kindly from a board who's looking at financial issues. But that was a case where they trusted us and we built it and they're still coming.
So John, obviously some of this is knowledge, right? We know more about early education, children, all the way through high school than we've ever known. So we now know all of their specific needs. Like, I have to laugh that the first idea is a low-tech elementary school and the very next one's AI education. And if that doesn't show you how confusing our world is, that sums it up to me. But John, if you're going in to the school board whichever school board it is, and you're saying we want to expand collegiate academy and we want to bring back two-way dual language, how would you approach the board in a pitch situation to say, look, you've got to think further than 2 years ahead, but here is what we expect the outcome to be? How would you approach that?
Well, I would start like I would at any address to the board would be what the research tells us. So research tells us with two-way dual language, research told us that kids were going to struggle in third grade when they took the test. They just were. We knew it. And we let parents know that. Your kid is not going to score well on the third grade tax test. And some parents said, I'm out, because that's important to me. But if we believe the research from these scholars, then we know that by the time they're in middle school, they are exceeding, and by the time they're in high school, they are far exceeding. We had 60% of our first class of two-way dual language students when they got to middle school and took the AP Spanish test, 60% of them passed.
In 8th grade.
In 8th grade. That should tell you a whole lot more than whether or not my child scored well on the third grade tax test or the third grade STAR test. And it comes back down to, what do you want? What do you want as a district? Do you want test scores and the ability to brag about them? Or do you want what every parent told us they wanted, and what every parent told us tonight, this is what we want for our kids? What I heard tonight was, listen to what the needs of my kids are. And you can't have 100 different programs, but I would start with, here's what the research on that says. And here's how it can be done in a systematic way, starting from K or pre-K all the way through 12th grade.
And starting that research is something that parents can do now. Like you can start researching it now and then work your way up.
Absolutely. And many parents in this room have already done research.
Does anybody else have questions for John, specifically on innovation in education? We're going to move to the other ones here as well, but was there anything else that somebody wanted to cover that I interrupted you and told you to move very rudely in it?
So looking at all the ideas for innovation in education, John, in your opinion, which one or ones would have like the most squeeze? Like, so obviously we're trying to increase funds, and obviously there might be a little bit of a delay in implementation in terms of those funds. But if, you know, we're looking at these ideas, which one is going to give us the biggest bang for the buck?
Well, if you want to attract people, I'm sorry to say, and this is not just because this was my baby, but two-way dual language was like an arrow through the heart when they decided to do away with that. And you can take data and you can turn it around, and I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate was done with that data, but you can use data to tell whatever story you want. I know through our experience that kids benefited.
Yeah.
And they were bilingual, bicultural, and biliterate.
So kids absolutely benefited just the 8th grade AP test, but you also get, is it almost $400 more per kid from the state?
The other part of it is, if you're looking at dollars and cents, look at the things where you're going to get weighted ADA. So look at your career tech. Career tech has weighted ADA, two-way dual language. So you don't really get the 6160. Weighted ADA is just an additional weight for special kind of programs.
You get more money.
Kids are in CTE, you get more money per kid when they're in the CTE course.
And I wasn't a dual language person, so I'm not an expert, but there they are. When you say, maybe Rachel or Allie wants to talk about the report that was done, but when John says, well, you could. So if John says, like,
the report recommended keeping the program, and the district voted to do away. They paid for a study that recommended to keep a study of dual language that recommended to keep the program, and the report, that's what the report recommended, and they still voted to do away with the program. And if you look at our enrollment numbers at Timberland in terms of what that did for our campus, In 2010, because I've got in the numbers, 2010, we had an enrollment of 585 students. The year right when COVID started, our enrollment was at 595 students, so it fluctuated from year to year. But overall, our enrollment stayed the same. We actually gained 10 kids at the end of that. Since they actually stopped taking new enrollment to dual language in 2022, my son's in the last class of it. When they stopped taking that enrollment, we've lost 130 kids in 3 years at the Timberline campus. So those programs help.
Yep. Great.
I will say, so I was one of those parents that left Timberline after they got rid of the dual language because I was in for OC Taylor. And I was like, well, if this is the last class, they're not going to put any resources into maintaining the integrity of the program that I joined. But one thing that I do want to point out, and this was something, these were two ideas I had at the time of listening to this data from the district, is that one, the feeder pattern didn't allow for additional English learners to be added after those English learners in second and third grade left. And so there is a specific ratio that the state requires when you're doing two-way dual language. And so there was no fix for that in the way that the lottery system was set up. The second thing I would say is I feel like the type of student who would be successful in that program wasn't identified for the program. It was just through the lottery, whoever their parents signed it up for. So you may not have gotten students who would have been in it for the long haul because they were, a certain type of student to be successful in that program. So those were the two critiques I had on dual language, and I really wish we could have fixed that part of it, but they decided to just cut it all together.
So I think the takeaway from this, though, is that, find out what your kid is interested in, research and see, because there might be something like that two-way dual language out there. So moving on to recruitment and retention, that was Becca. Here's
I'll
Becca.
talk about that for just a second. So a lot of talk about different programs is what we mentioned a lot. Mainly internal and external marketing of those programs. People that are in the schools didn't even know that other programs, like somebody mentioned Avid was an option, or when I came into the district, I didn't even know dual language is an option, and yet the school was one school over from us, so that could have easily been for us. Yeah. The next one is to pre-K. Open it up at all schools, because we know that students and families fall in love with that school, and then they're going to stay and want to do all the things there. And then the last one I heard a lot about was specialization for our SPED kiddos and 504 kiddos, medically fragile. If there's campuses that do that really well, then we need to open the enrollment up to the whole district so that they can go there.
That was good.
Yeah.
There was a lot more, but
No, recruitment seems like that's baseline marketing. Like, just I'm a marketing and PR guy, so I'm biased towards that, but just calming the district down and telling a better story about what is good in our district that we all love, I think, is the story that we need to be working on putting out there. And along that, the pre-K and everything like that, because we fell in love with Dove because our kids went to pre-K at Dove. It just so happens we're zoned for it, but still, we had to agonize whether or not to send our second grader to Aspire because we didn't want her to leave Dove. And we spent 3 months agonizing over that. So anyways, are there any other, so we've got about 15 minutes left, and I do want to respect everybody's time. So are there any other questions for Becca?
We've got a
quickly?
question
Here, we
right
got one over here, and then we'll come back. You are.
Recruitment and retention, we didn't really differentiate between recruitment and retention of students versus teachers. Two separate issues that are both very important that we maybe should address.
Yeah.
yeah, we did add a couple more at the bottom there about, having happy teachers, staff turnover, and even like a Baylor Scott and White partnership for like their healthcare and stuff. Oh, and there's something I left off. There was a lot of interesting talk. I didn't even expect this, about how the cities could be involved and how those educational partnerships work. Like, what is the library doing? What is the city doing to recruit younger families to move here to our area? Things like that.
What?
Or even just local city.
Yeah, so there are multiple levels of recruitment.
What?
It's not so much as a question as a comment in terms of recruitment and retention. So anytime I've signed up for anything, whether it be a portal, an app, or whatever, I get a welcome email. And it usually tells me all the benefits to why I'm going to do this. Can we do something like that for parents who newly enroll their kids in this district, where it's like, here's all the benefits to joining us with these programs?
And here's the resources and your contacts and, who to ask. That's a great idea.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Could we work through realtors like Keller Williams and all of those people to talk
Becca,
about?
get your marker.
I'm getting my marker. could we work through realtors if they're debating what school to what city to move into? Like, could we give marketing materials to those realtors?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea because whether or not they have unconscious influence about which houses they show people, and sure.
What about all of the great information that used to be on the school district and campus websites about how each campus used to be differentiated? All the programs, I referred so many people there and quoted them and sent links, and even with the programs being cut, every campus is different. Every neighborhood is different. They're compiled of different families, different salaries, different, makeup. What happened to that? Why can't we get that back?
That's a great idea. As somebody whose oldest is in second grade, I'm like bummed that we missed it. Like, I know Aaron's one of my neighbors, and like, yeah. Sorry, what?
We got to move on. Sorry.
Sorry. I know, I'm a talker too. So then we're talking about some community
Last
partnerships. Sorry.
question.
Yep.
Is there, I'm sure there's a reason why we couldn't, is there a way to include that sort of marketing material, those sort of like flyers that describe all the distinctions between emphasis and equity in the tax bill for people who are taxed for GCIs?
That
can it be like in their tax bill? Soon they go to all.
See, this is what happens, but we don't open forums to the community. And get these ideas. That's amazing. So we had adding it to the tax bill, or adding almost like a district white paper to your tax mailer of all the schools.
And
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And then some of that tied into the community partnerships, which I think is really fascinating, especially with all of the large companies we have in our area, not even just within our city limits. The Venn diagram of these two is
You only
very
have
tight.
one
We
piece
have
of
overlap.
paper?
It's okay.
You only have one piece of paper?
It's all right here, Becca.
Nobody can read my handwriting anyway. It doesn't matter how many pieces of paper we have. Okay, so there's no way we can cover all this. In a minute, I'm going to ask if anybody had anything that stuck out to them as far as community partnerships. I heard some incredible ideas. I'm going to do my best to write all those up based on my chicken scratch. But the one point I wanted to make is in each of the groups I ask, as a community member and as a parent at GCISD, if the district asks you to volunteer on a committee and to seek partnerships with our community and to seek ways we can develop revenue and develop opportunities for our kids, raise your hand if you'd do it. And there we go. So apparently we've got all the volunteers in the entire district in this room. No, but that's true. I'm a huge proponent of free labor, and that's what I want us to do.
Hold on, before we clip that and put that online.
Because the parents in our district are the ones who are working in these industries that are all around us. And so the point is, talk to those parents, be like, hey, the company you work for might want to sponsor something or might want to do a thing with us, and let's create a list, and then let's have the district look at that list and say, where could we fit this into what we're trying to do? That's the only point I wanted to make. So based on the incredible things we talked about with community partnerships, does anybody here want to talk about something they thought about when we were talking about community partnership? I heard some great ideas.
I do know that there is a Dubisky High School in Grand Prairie that is a straight technical and trade school, and those kids graduate making like 60 to 80K a year doing diesel tech and cosmetics and things. And it's like, we need to be looking at those. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Tiffany voluntold me to share this. So one of the things that I had thought about was the healthcare connection with Baylor Scott and White, and that's a multifaceted plus for different parties. I mean, at its core, we have to remember Baylor Scott and White comes from Baylor University and is a teaching hospital system. They're at their foundation, they are an educational system. healthcare is a hugely growing industry. So if we could partner with them just district-wide, it could work in terms of us providing shadowing, volunteers, high school students who might want to go into the healthcare field. And it would also give exposure to a lot of those students who may end up wanting to go into that field. It could be anything from someone who wants to be an x-ray tech to a surgeon. There are hundreds and thousands of jobs available that could be exposed to these children, and these children could benefit Baylor as well. And that they're also part of our community.
Arcane.
And the director of quality is at Baylor Scott and White and Grapevine is a Dove's parent.
Okay.
Becky Balding.
Tech, so we sponsor people to come through and learn how to be HVAC techs and then go and like work wherever they need to work, and then we'll hopefully sell our products. But that's the intent. It's called Build a Tech, so we have a program already.
As somebody whose AC has gone out in August, I would pay them a lot of money to fix that.
Thank you.
So,
Other questions? I did.
I actually had one more sitting here. That we should be taking more advantage of cooperation with the city itself in terms of kids who may want to become police officers or firefighters, and also our amazing Parks and Recreation Department and our incredible Planning and Development Department. There's a lot of opportunity here that I think they can listen.
anyone else? So we can't do any of this without strategic planning. That's called a segue. So, Kimberly, if you want to... I think so. A segue.
Good.
Yeah, it's for the cameras. So...
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So the same thing that came up in ours over and over and over again was involve the community, and involve the community. So they have lots of great ideas, but on all of them, they were saying you should involve the community. So we already did, the partnership stuff came up for us as a goal and whatever plan is put forth. We wanted a goal or an objective or whatever that was definitely tied to enrollment, everything from how to grow the enrollment to considering opening enrollment, at least at the very minimum to certain programs, and also to the land that we have in Grapevine and Colleyville and Euless and whatever that is already in our towns, but are zoned to other districts, reaching out to those people if that's agreed upon, and telling them about our schools, and maybe having an annual process for getting prepared for the kids that are coming into pre-K. And also a big one was figuring out some kind of program for tracking the people, asking them why, following up with them to say, we would like to have you back. Because not everybody that leaves has the best experience. The grass isn't always greener. So, it wouldn't hurt to send somebody a note that says, we miss you. I leave my electric company and they tell me that they miss me. So we could tell them we miss them. Another big one was having some kind of goal objective around our internal and external auditing processes, and maybe offering some kind of financial presentation to the community twice a year so that the community can have not just the budget presentation that happens in the boardroom, but more in line with allowing us to ask questions and get familiar with why it is that these things pop up where all of a sudden the budget is completely changed, particularly in regards to things like the fund balance and those kind of things, where suddenly $3 million has gone out of it, just giving us the explanation of why. And when we have things that are missing, understanding why that is. And there's lots and lots of good ones on here I'm not going to go through, but what was we had the one about maybe having an objective that had something to do with partnering with realtors and apartment complexes or the cities to incentivize them, maybe not with money, because we don't have any of that, but something else where maybe we could give them information about the schools so that when people come by to see about renting an apartment in Grapevine or buying a house, that those folks could be handing things out to talk about the great school district that we have, involving the community in conversations about tax rate decisions. Obviously a big, huge one for us was looking at a different type of metric or measure of success, similar to we don't want to call it that though, so because we don't necessarily want to go to what we have had before, but definitely getting away from having our measure of success being a star score. We don't want that. So I think that was our biggest thing, but involve the community, and involve the community.
I have a strategic plan question.
Yes.
And maybe this is for you guys who have been here longer. So in my world, in the nonprofit world, and we do strategic planning every 3 to 5 years. That's what your typical strategic plan length is. Does the school district currently have a strategic plan?
No, they do not.
Have they ever had a
Yes, they
strategic
have.
plan? Sorry?
Yes. Right. The 2021 was written like a strategic plan, and they had goals, and the superintendent had his goals set on those goals, and every single thing. Like I remember being on different campus excellence committees, and through the PTA, and through different. Like I was super involved in advanced academics through SAGE. Everything that we would ever come to the district and ask for, they would say, you're going to figure out a place where that falls in lead 2021, because you're going to need to find a way that it meets one of the things they're working on, right?
And
It
that's
needs
what
to-
a strategic plan
right,
does.
they
It
would
guides
say,
you
you
back.
better find a way to attach that to somebody's goal.
Yeah.
Becky's going to be great at talking about that.
All right, this will be our last.
Yes, comment.
Had a strategic plan, and when we hit coming up on 2021, we also had a refresh of it, which was called the Lead 2.0. It got humbled very quickly, and then no, we didn't have a strategic plan afterwards. I think the concept of a plan is that the scorecard is counting as a strategic plan, but it's not. The scorecard is just a measuring tool. It's not a strategic plan. So no, there is no strategic plan right now.
Create a strategic
Yeah,
plan.
so our strategic
Step
plan
one.
recommendation has one thing on it. Our
Yeah,
goal is
make a
to
plan.
create a strategic plan
But
and
then
to
you can close out
involve
the list, and it's so satisfying.
and to involve the community in creating the strategic plan. Thank you.
So we definitely want to thank everybody for coming tonight, all of our guests and community. Are we calling you experts? You guys are experts.
Informed
Our informed citizens. I'm sorry, I forgot our informed citizens for being here. John, again, to talk about this stuff. And I think what I'm going to take away, and it's what we've always known, is that GCISD is special because of the people. And whenever you cut the people out, you lose what's special about this district. So the best way we can make our voices heard now is to contact the board. There's a board meeting coming up on Monday. Sign up to speak. You get 1 minute. You don't have to use the whole minute. You can have one sentence, come up with one point that you want to go and put on the public record, on video. I know it's intimidating, but you can get one thing on the record in front of a school board, and then it's there forever, and they will know. And they'll send emails. I know several of us are going to sign up to speak, but at this point, the more the better. We know Bransford got some really rough news today. We're expecting it does tomorrow. And we've got our community movie night tomorrow night. And so this is really close to home and does feel kind of urgent. The window, you can sign up until noon on, it opens,
Noon on Friday to noon on Monday.
to noon on Monday to sign up to speak. So,
Do we have any other last questions? Because this really is about you guys. And I always end my meetings with a round robin, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask.
How the push out our board to the strategic plan. So that's I still don't understand how we should that.
Well, I think we start with forums like this.
and making noise at board meetings, sending emails, and letting them, and voting. There are 3 school board seats that are going to be up in May, so we can. We do. Yeah.
Marissa is making a really good point. So the last forum that you guys had, we came to the very next school board meeting and they were going through our questions line by line by line. And so if you want to make a difference, if you want them to start with a strategic plan, I think you need to scan this right here.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah. And I've been told so many times it is not a sprint, it's a marathon. We've got to get to May. This does not end in December. And we're in this together. We need to be the example of a community that unites and does something different. So that's what we're here tonight to do.
We talked a lot about the parents and centering like what we want as a community, but to me, one of the other things that really makes a school is the teachers. And they don't come here for the paycheck. They come here because they care. And one of the things that I have noticed in the short time that my kids have been in this district is that the trust in our professionals that we've hired is definitely eroded by leadership within the district. And so to me, I just feel like they need to do something. I don't know what it is, but they need to trust the professionals that they hired to educate our kids. And I just don't feel like that's coming from administration or the board.
And as parents, we need to hold their hands, to, not the administration, the teachers, and really walk with them. And the last two elections were decided by 300 votes and 100 votes, so it matters.
So I keep hearing community, community. How do we get the community who is not directly related with our campuses, either by students, parents, teachers, how do we get them involved in all of this? Because I'm grateful that I'm included and I've joined a lot of the social media pages. How do we get those individuals? Because there's so many resources out there in our school district that we could tag or we could talk to or we could ask questions. How do we get them involved?
History. I think, yeah.
Hi, I just had a quick question. The council member from Grapevine who was speaking, his name was Leon, is that right?
Leon.
Oh, Leon. Thank you. I think he alluded to something, or he said something like the leaders of the two cities had come together to speak tonight, or something like that. Can you elaborate on that, or is this like a Hail Mary at the last?
You that know what we know. Renee, do you know?
We have Renee to answer that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Renee.
Hi. So, Mayor Tate and the mayor of Colleyville did have a meeting to discuss releasing a joint statement. We don't have an exact timeline on when that will be coming out, but they will be releasing something together.
So our cities are planning for Gray. So it doesn't make sense why our schools are predicting enrollment decline. So they're trying to get together to see why that looks different. Yeah, their plan is to see, one, how can they help the district get through this now? Where can they partner with them to get through this now so that we can pause and have a plan that's really well thought out? I'm telling everyone, like they just said, it's not me, so don't lose hope.
We've shared that with our Dove teachers today too, because obviously they haven't had their meetings yet, but we've told everyone it's not over. It's not, we have a chance to still hit pause. We do have a chance to potentially vote in some new members in May. So don't lose hope and don't quit, because this group right here that's here is the reason that we are still relevant and they are still listening to us. And I take all of this information that we get from these sessions and I send it to the board and I send it to the city after our meetings and make sure that they know that these questions are coming out of our families and it's important that they listen to us. So.
Is this information going to the city of Colleyville?
Yeah, it will now. And we will send them the full recording as well through the unedited and Euless.
GCISD is huge nonetheless.
So most of you in this room, well, a good bit of you in this room know, I have a 7th grader. And when he heard that I was coming tonight, of course, he's like, Mom, can I come with you? Because, he wants to be attached. But these kids, they care. We're out of elementary school. I have a 7th grader, so we're in middle school. But my 7th grader cares about Dove. Now, he doesn't know necessarily about the other elementary schools, but our kids have value to share. And I think it might be a good idea to bring some of them in and let them speak. We're sitting here as parents, role modeling, standing up and speaking in your community respectfully, and illustrating that to our kids. Let them have a voice too.
All right, one more comment or question over here with Erin, because she's been raising her hands. And then
My question was just about the news that came out today. I think it was shared in the forums on Facebook about the contract with Huckabee being signed without board approval. And I was just wondering what the potential ramifications of that were, because in my world, that would create an immediate void of contract. It would void the entire process related to it.
so say we got lawyers.
I can speak to that because we just filed. So there's another contract that's about $50,000. It was also signed by Dr. Schnauz in the last year without board approval. So some of us parents, Tiffany, Allie, we have a grievance with the board that was heard 2 Monday nights ago that did not go well. But through that grievance, the board has, we brought that contract up and asked for an accounting of all the contracts that were more than $25,000 that had been signed without board approval. That what we learned from that is that the board is indicating, or the district's indicating, that they get a general bid from these contractors. So it's an open-ended bid with no terms, no scope of work, no price attached to it. It's for general services. They approve that bid, and through that bid, they can sign any contract for any amount at any time during the time period of it, and those are usually about 3 years, and they're signing the contracts under those. So until some board member wants to stop that and say we want our money back, it's going to keep going. And so I would tell you guys to email them and tell them it's not, if it may be a technicality and maybe they're approving it correctly, it's not transparent. Matt Faust requested that list, so I won't know.
Yeah, so we did get the contract with Huckabee. So we did get that one through public information.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to ask John to come close us out. He's got some words of wisdom for us. I think it's pretty important that we listen and that we learn from where we've been, because if we don't know where we've been, we don't know where we're going. And that's what tonight's about. It's about where we're going. So take us home, John.
Well, this is not what I was going to say, but what this reminds me is a book I read called Schools Can't Do It Alone by Jamie Vollmer. And Jamie Vollmer was a very successful businessman in the Midwest who made the best ice cream. His words. The absolute best ice, but he was very anti-public education. And he was very vocal about it. Somehow, and I don't know how this happened, but he was invited to speak to a high school staff. Now, I've spoken to high school staffs. They are not a easy crowd. And he gave his speech, and he was very open about how, against public education, how they were failing, how they were not meeting the needs of kids. And he took some questions. And in his book, he said, you know what? I looked at this older teacher, looked very kind, and thought this would be a safe person to say, okay, what question do you have? And she said, Mr. Vollmer, when you make your ice cream, do you use the absolute best blueberries? Oh, absolutely, because this is the best ice cream you've ever had, the creamiest, the smoothest, the best. And so what do you do when you don't have the best blueberries? Well, we send them back. We get rid of them. We get our money back. And at that very moment, he realized the bear trap had been sprung. And she said, you know what, Mr. Vollmer, in public education, we don't get to send anybody back. We get who we get. and we do our very best with those kiddos. And that was a turning point for him. He realized at that very moment he needed to spend his time supporting public education rather than railing against it. And so he became a big proponent of public education. And he talked about the need for the great conversation. And that's what this is. And that's what needs to continue to happen. It needs to continue, whether there's and these things come up because there's trauma, there's crisis, there's chaos, and people are upset. But these kinds of conversations need to continue even when things are going well. So that people like me who are at central office, who are nameless, faceless people trying to do what's best for kids, can hear from parents to say, this is so great for my kid. Or, you know what would even be better? What if you did this? And to have that open exchange so that every single time a community member or a parent was together with an educator, it wasn't as adversaries. It was as partners. And I think that that's what needs to continue. So whether it's the crisis of closing schools or whether it's we expect to have a long-term plan, a strategic plan, a lot of names for it, and I have facilitated some, there needs to be something there. There needs to be something down the road to look toward. And I would just encourage you to continue this kind of commitment and energy past December, past May, and even when your kids are gone, like mine, and you got grandkids in the district. Continue focusing on that because that's the only way that this district gets better.
And can you remind us whose district this is?
It's your district, folks. It's mine too because I pay taxes, but it's your district. And again, I'd always have to remind my folks when they get frustrated, it's not your district, it's theirs. And our job is to give them what they want. But guess what? You first have got to figure out, what do you want? And that's where that plan comes in. This is what we want. So how are you going to do it? Because we've hired you to do this. And if you don't want to do it, find a place where you're better suited. And we'll get people who will want to do this way.